What do I absolutely know? I know that people are inherently good in my experience. That's all I can speak from. I know that anything is possible if we determine that it's a personal goal and we want to take that call to action and make those steps to get there. I kind of grew up with, again, I'll go back to my mother. She's a huge influence on my life. She's 91 right now, and we still talk every single day, no matter where I am in the world. And I grew up with the Dennis Waitley tapes playing, the old cassette tapes would be playing wherever she was in the house, or the Dale Carnegie, the little books with all the positive sayings. And so I think it just sticks with you. And I think that that positive thinking, the mindset that we have, when we get out of bed, we determine what kind of day we're going to have. I absolutely know that.
That's awesome.
I absolutely know who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I do.
Beautiful.
I've known since I was 4.5 that I wasn't a boy.
Mm-hmm.
And it just took me 50 years to get where I am.
Well, congratulations. And it's a wonderful answer. And without sounding cheesy, it's an inspiration to us all, right? Is that a lot of us, not necessarily related to gender expression, and maybe, but we knew who we were and we weren't allowed to be that. And maybe someday we all get enough agency to absolutely know it and be it, you know?
And it can be hard and scary.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Anna.
But we can do it, though. We can do it.
Yeah, we totally can. That's wonderful. Thank you.
I do think that when you bring a lot of different lived experiences to the table, you get a fantastic array of perspectives, which can enhance any sort of product that people might be consuming, whether that's a program or something tangible. Mm-hmm. But I do think that so much of the work that needs to be done is just unsocializing people. That is totally not a word, but just this idea that the language that I use and the way that I approach things, whether it's from a place of privilege or a place of social constructs that we've been raised up in, really do have the ability to then continue to perpetuate those systems. I absolutely know that love has the power to change lives.
If the executive sponsor for a grassroots team is an ally versus someone who identifies as a member of that demographic group, they are so much more powerful because they can engage in unfettered advocacy without the appearance of it being self-serving. And we now know many years later that from research, people who engage in advocacy for their own team, so to speak, suffer personal and professional consequences. That may be like 100% wrong, but it does happen and it's now been documented. So not only are cross-diversity allies more effective when they take the time to learn, to invest, and they commit to being visible and vocal, but they also are not paying a penalty. And in fact, I always say, think of it as reciprocal mentoring because you will get as much or more as an ally than you are giving if you are authentic and committed, because you will get to the center pole of the tent for that community, that person's life, and it will enrich your life in ways you're not going to even be able to predict.
There's no way that we can be absolute experts. Like, I'm a constant learner. I'm constantly curious. I want to continue to seek to know and understand. And I think that's all that any of us can do, especially when it comes to this kind of work. It's like just trying to figure out and understand other people's perspectives and other ways of being that maybe are not right for us, but then it helps us understand more about the world and other people in it.
There's so much that we don't know, and the way that we figure out that we don't know a whole lot is when we meet and interact with ideas and people and things that are different from us. And so I think that's how we learn and grow as people, and I think that's how you learn and grow as an organization, is when you're confronted with things that you didn't know you didn't know. There are things that people don't know and sometimes don't want to know or don't want to actually take on, because these topics can be heavy, especially when you're supporting people. developing initiatives. And so I get to do other duties as assigned is really all of that tends to be a lot of that emotional labor, because I find that I'm just doing more and more of this. These other duties as assigned are now becoming like essential components of my job. If I'm in a room full of white people, there's some sort of authority that they give me to speak on behalf of people of color that can be difficult to navigate. Like, I know a lot of the issues that people of color experience based on my work and my relationships with others. But then how do I communicate that in a way that I'm not also speaking for them? And so there's just a lot to manage. And I think for me, it involves a lot of intention setting. So anytime I'm doing a presentation that's diversity and inclusion related, I actually take about 15 minutes before to set intentions and to just be by myself.
When I use the term cultural humility, specifically in a medical setting, I'll talk about how, like, you've had the people in the audience, you've had all this education, you have all this experience, and you need to bring that in to your patients, your colleagues, their family members, and set it slightly to the side. And cultural humility is having a one-on-one conversation with that human being and recognizing that in this moment, they know more than you do. And so that's the leaving the door open, right? And when they give you the information, it can trickle through your experience and your knowledge, but the humility piece is recognizing that someone else knows themselves better.
And that can be challenging when you're up in front of a room and they're expecting you to tell them information they need to know. So that's the part that I sometimes will, in terms of trying to be culturally humble while I'm presenting and navigating the role of an authority or any sort of authority or expert which I hate the word expert related to this work, is that's part of the challenge for me. Because if groups are inviting you in, they want you to tell information that they need to know to do their jobs better. But also then you tell them, well, it kind of depends. If you're wanting to be an ally, if you're wanting to improve the culture of your organization, you need to be regularly asking yourself these sets of questions, right? So, recently I did a presentation or a group facilitation around like the danger of a single story, which is from Chimamanda Adichie. And I'm like, for me, that looks like, what story am I telling myself right now? How do I know that story is true? And what other stories exist? And I'm like, and that's transformed not just my professional career, but who I am as a person and how I'm able to interact with family members, with friends, with people on the street, or people that everyday people that you meet. And I'm like, those are the questions that you have to reflect on regularly and constantly. And you will notice that will then transform how you're doing the work. Because also, if you're not asking yourself those questions, I can tell you all that you need to do, and I don't think actually anything will change.